In the modern world of cinema, few names command as much respect and quiet admiration as Keanu Reeves. Known for his humility, discipline, and the emotional depth that runs beneath his calm exterior, Reeves has become far more than just a Hollywood star. He is a symbol of perseverance, loss, and quiet resilience. But long before the fame, the stardom, and the memes that crowned him as the internet's nicest guy, Keanu Reeves' life began with instability, displacement, and pain, the kind that would shape his perspective forever. Keanu Charles Reeves was born on September 2, 1964, in Beirut, Lebanon, to Patricia Taylor, a British costume designer, and Samuel Nowlin Reeves, Jr., a Hawaiian-born geologist of Chinese, English, and Portuguese descent. His name, Keanu, comes from the Hawaiian phrase Keanu, meaning cool breeze over the mountains. The meaning of his name would one day feel almost prophetic, a gentle calm amid life's constant storms. When Keanu was just 3 years old, his father left the family. Patricia, now a single mother, moved constantly in search of stability. They lived in Sydney, then New York, and eventually settled in Toronto, Canada. These early years were transient, marked by change, uncertainty, and emotional distance. In interviews, Keanu rarely speaks about his father, but when he does, there's a sense of quiet detachment, not anger, but acceptance. Samuel Reeves struggled with substance abuse and spent time in prison for drug-related offenses. Keanu lost contact with him completely by the time he was 13. Patricia remarried multiple times, and each new household brought new challenges. Despite the instability, Keanu and his younger sister, Kim, remained close. He would later describe Kim as his best friend, a bond that would endure even through her later battles with illness. Growing up, Keanu attended several schools, 4 in just 5 years, and was often expelled for being, as he put it, a little too rambunctious. One of these schools was an arts-focused institution where he began developing an interest in acting. Though his journey was anything but straightforward, Keanu's dyslexia made academics difficult. Reading lines took him longer than his peers, and traditional education felt like a maze he couldn't quite navigate. But while the classroom wasn't his arena, his stage was. At just 15, Keanu performed in a local stage production of Romeo and Juliet, and something clicked. Acting gave him a voice, a way to channel his emotions and express what he couldn't always put into words. When he wasn't acting, he was often skating or playing hockey, his first great passion. In fact, his high school nickname was The Wall, a reference to his skills as a goaltender. At one point, he even dreamed of playing professionally, but fate had other plans. By the early 1980s, Keanu dropped out of high school and decided to pursue acting full-time. He took odd jobs to support himself, working as a cook, a production assistant, and even a sharpening boy for ice skates. At age 20, with little money and big dreams, he packed up his car, an old Volvo, and drove from Toronto to Los Angeles, chasing what so many before him had sought, a chance to make it in Hollywood. He didn't have connections, he didn't have family there, and he didn't even have American citizenship. But what he did have was quiet determination, the kind of perseverance that would one day make him one of the most respected figures in film. This was the beginning of Keanu Reeves' journey, one that would take him from sleeping on couches to becoming one of the most beloved and enigmatic actors of his generation. When Keanu Reeves arrived in Los Angeles in the mid-1980s, Hollywood was in a period of transformation. It was a decade of blockbusters, bright lights, and even brighter personalities, and Keanu, with his quiet demeanor and thoughtful nature, didn't quite fit the mold. But sometimes it's the ones who don't fit that end up defining a generation. Keanu's early days in Hollywood were marked by small television roles and commercials. He appeared in short films, minor TV movies, and bit parts that barely paid the bills. Yet every opportunity, no matter how small, was another step forward. His first noticeable role came in 1986 in a gritty indie film called River's Edge. The film was a stark, unsettling portrayal of disaffected youth, and Keanu's performance as Matt, a conflicted teenager struggling with moral decay, caught critics' attention. It was the first real glimpse of what would become a recurring theme in his career, the quiet, introspective hero. River's Edge was a critical success. It wasn't a blockbuster, but it proved Keanu could act, really act. He wasn't just another pretty face. He was a performer capable of nuance, pain, and empathy. In the years that followed, Reeves moved fluidly between roles, appearing in Permanent Record, 1988, a film that tackled teen suicide with a rare sensitivity, and Dangerous Liaisons, 1988, where he shared the screen with acting heavyweights like Glenn Close and John Malkovich. But it was in 1989 that everything changed. That year, Keanu starred as Ted Theodore, Logan in the now iconic comedy Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure. The film was a light-hearted romp about two lovable, airheaded teenagers who travel through time in a phone booth to complete their high school history project. It was ridiculous, it was absurd, and it was brilliant. Keanu's portrayal of Ted, earnest, kind-hearted, and genuinely clueless, became a cultural phenomenon. The film's success surprised everyone, including Reeves himself. Bill and Ted made him a household name and cemented his reputation as the quintessential good guy, a role that would follow him for years. Yet Keanu refused to be boxed in. He feared typecasting, and rightfully so. Hollywood had a habit of confining actors to narrow lanes, especially those who became famous through comedy. Reeves wanted to explore depth, drama, and danger. In the early 1990s, he deliberately sought roles that would challenge perceptions. He starred in Gus Van Sant's haunting 1991 masterpiece, My Own Private Idaho, alongside his close friend River Phoenix. In that film, Reeves played Scott Favor, a wealthy young man drifting through life alongside Phoenix's character, a homeless sex worker named Mike. The film was raw, poetic, and deeply human. It tackled sexuality, loneliness, and identity at a time when Hollywood largely avoided such themes. Reeves' friendship with River Phoenix extended off-screen. The two were kindred spirits, thoughtful, gentle souls navigating the chaos of fame. They often spoke about life, philosophy, and the kind of people they wanted to be. Reeves once described Phoenix as one of the best actors of his generation. But even as Reeves explored indie projects, he began dipping his toes into blockbuster territory. In 1991, he starred alongside Patrick Swayze in Point Break, directed by Catherine Bigelow. Reeves played Johnny Utah, an undercover FBI agent infiltrating a gang of surfer bank robbers. The film was a hit, equal parts action and philosophy. It wasn't just about adrenaline. It was about identity, loyalty, and moral conflict. Reeves' performance showed a new dimension. He could do action, but with depth and emotion. That same year, he reprised his role in Bill and Ted's Bogus Journey, a sequel that further cemented his cultural footprint. He now had a foot in both worlds, commercial success and artistic credibility. But Hollywood is fickle. For every success there's scrutiny. Critics sometimes dismissed Reeves as wooden, or said his calm delivery came off as detached. But audiences saw something else: sincerity, a rare kind of authenticity that couldn't be faked. In 1992, Keanu took a surprising turn, starring in Francis Ford Coppola's Bram Stoker's Dracula. Surrounded by acting giants like Gary Oldman and Anthony Hopkins, Reeves faced harsh criticism for his British accent. Yet the film's success only amplified his visibility. By 1993, Keanu was everywhere, on magazine covers, in major studio projects, and recognized as one of the most promising young actors of his generation. But beneath the rising fame, there was still something guarded about him. He never seemed fully comfortable in Hollywood's spotlight. He avoided gossip, ignored the glitz, and often spent his free time reading, riding his motorcycle, or quietly disappearing from public life. It was as if he knew even then that fame was fleeting, and peace was something you had to protect. And just as his career was reaching new heights, tragedy began to cast its long shadow. The mid-1990s would mark both Keanu Reeves' rise to global superstardom and the beginning of a series of heartbreaks that would forever shape his quiet, introspective soul. After years of climbing, the moment that changed everything came in 1994, when Keanu starred alongside Sandra Bullock in the high-octane thriller Speed, directed by Jan de Bont. Speed was a simple yet electrifying premise: a Los Angeles city bus rigged to explode if its speed dropped below 50 miles per hour. But what made the movie unforgettable wasn't just the action. It was Keanu's calm, unshakable performance as Jack Traven, a police officer who keeps his composure amid chaos. Keanu wasn't the loudest or the most intense action hero. He was grounded, controlled, the still point in a storm of explosions. And that authenticity connected with audiences around the world. Speed became one of the biggest box office hits of the decade, catapulting Reeves into the upper echelon of Hollywood stardom. He had become an international leading man, the kind of actor whose name could open a movie. Yet even at the height of his newfound fame, Keanu remained humble. While others chased big paychecks, he sought meaning. When offered a massive sum to appear in Speed 2, he turned it down instead. He went on tour with his band Dogstar, playing bass guitar in small clubs across North America and Japan. Hollywood couldn't understand him. Most actors would have seized the momentum: sequels, endorsements, luxury homes. Keanu chose music, motorcycles, and simplicity. His band, Dogstar, wasn't famous, but that wasn't the point. Keanu wasn't chasing applause. He was chasing peace. Still, in 1995, he returned to the screen with a series of eclectic roles in A Walk in the Clouds, a romantic drama, Johnny Mnemonic, a cyberpunk experiment ahead of its time, and Chain Reaction, a science thriller co-starring Morgan Freeman. While not all of these films succeeded critically, each represented Reeves' curiosity, his desire to explore, even if it meant taking risks. But fate, once again, had darker plans. In 1993, Keanu suffered an unimaginable loss. his close friend and my own private Idaho co-star, River Phoenix, died from a drug overdose outside the Viper Room nightclub in Los Angeles. He was just 23 years old. The death devastated Keanu. River wasn't just a co-star. He was family. They had shared dreams, philosophies, and a vision of artistic integrity in a shallow industry. Keanu rarely spoke about River's death publicly, but those close to him say it changed him forever. He became quieter, more withdrawn, a man who carried grief not as a burden, but as a scar etched into his character. Despite the personal pain, Keanu pressed on. His work ethic remained relentless, and in 1997, he starred in The Devil's Advocate alongside Al Pacino and Charlize Theron, a supernatural legal thriller that showcased Keanu's growing maturity as an actor. It was a critical and commercial hit, and his understated performance balanced Pacino's explosive charisma perfectly. Then came 1999, a film that would redefine not just Keanu's career, but the entire landscape of modern cinema. That film was The Matrix, written and directed by the Wachowski siblings. The Matrix was a bold, visionary exploration of technology, freedom, and reality itself. Reeves played Neo, a computer hacker who discovers that the world around him is an elaborate simulation designed to enslave humanity. The role seemed tailor-made for him. Neo's quiet confusion, his sense of alienation, and his ultimate awakening mirrored Keanu's own spiritual curiosity. The film's groundbreaking visual effects, bullet time, slow-motion choreography, and sleek black trench coats became instantly iconic. But beyond the spectacle, The Matrix spoke to something deeper, the search for truth in an artificial world. Reeves trained for months to master martial arts, performing many of his own stunts despite undergoing spinal surgery prior to filming. His dedication impressed the cast and crew, who spoke often about his discipline and humility. When The Matrix was released in March 1999, it was a phenomenon. Critics hailed it as revolutionary. It grossed over $460 million worldwide and won 4 Academy Awards. Keanu Reeves had officially transcended stardom. He was now a cultural icon. But even as he reached unimaginable professional heights, his personal life began to collapse. In the late 1990s, Keanu met Jennifer Syme, a production assistant and actress. The two shared an immediate connection, quiet, artistic souls drawn together by empathy and love. In 1999, Jennifer became pregnant with their daughter. Keanu was ecstatic. It was a new beginning, a reason to smile again after years of loss. But on December 24, 1999, tragedy struck. Their baby girl, Ava Archer Syme Reeves, was stillborn just weeks before her due date. The grief was overwhelming. The couple, heartbroken, tried to navigate their pain together, but the weight of loss eventually drove them apart. Then, barely a year later, tragedy struck again. In April 2001, Jennifer Syme was killed in a car accident in Los Angeles. She was only 28 years old. Keanu was shattered. In a matter of years, he had lost his best friend, his child, and the woman he loved. He withdrew completely from public life. He took long rides alone on his motorcycle, disappearing into the mountains. In interviews, he rarely discussed these events, often saying, "Grief changes shape, but it never ends." It was during this period of isolation that Keanu began to re-evaluate everything: fame, success, and meaning itself. He read philosophy, practiced meditation, and focused on simple living. The image of Keanu sitting alone on a park bench years later, the now famous "Sad Keanu" photo, would become an internet meme. But behind that image was a man who had seen more loss than most could imagine. Still, even in sorrow, he kept working, and soon the world would see a quieter, wiser Keanu, a man reborn through tragedy. The turn of the millennium should have been a time of triumph for Keanu Reeves. After the explosive success of The Matrix in 1999, he had become one of the most recognizable faces in the world, a symbol of coolness, discipline, and philosophical depth. But behind the fame, his personal grief still lingered like a quiet shadow. In the early 2000s, Reeves threw himself into work not as an escape, but as a form of endurance. Acting became his meditation, his way of channeling emotion into meaning. In 2003, The Matrix Reloaded and The Matrix Revolutions were released, filmed back-to-back over a grueling 18-month schedule. Both movies expanded the original's mythology, diving deeper into ideas about destiny, control, and free will. For Reeves, returning as Neo was both a challenge and a calling. He trained extensively once again, hours upon hours of martial arts, wire work, and choreography. Co-stars and stunt coordinators later described him as one of the hardest working actors in the industry, polite, tireless, and completely devoid of ego. During the press tours, journalists noted something unusual about Keanu. Despite the fame, he remained quiet, thoughtful, almost shy. He gave short, introspective answers, often deflecting praise toward others, the directors, the stunt team, the crew. It wasn't false modesty. Keanu simply didn't crave attention. He was grateful for the success, but refused to let it define him. One story from this time became legendary. After earning millions from the Matrix sequels, Reeves gave away a large portion of his back-end profits, tens of millions of dollars, to the film's special effects and costume teams. "They're the ones who make the movie," he reportedly said. He also gifted Harley-Davidson motorcycles to each of the stunt performers who had worked with him. It wasn't publicity. It was gratitude. His generosity wasn't limited to film sets. Over the years, Reeves quietly donated large sums to children's hospitals and cancer research organizations, including efforts supporting leukemia treatment, a cause deeply personal to him because of his sister, Kim's battle with the disease. He never sought credit or publicity for it. He even established a private foundation, one that operated without his name attached. "I just let the foundation do what it does," he told reporters. "I don't need to attach my name to it." After the Matrix trilogy concluded, Reeves took a step back from blockbuster fame. He began exploring smaller, more introspective projects. In 2005, he starred in Constantine, playing a cynical exorcist, battling demons, both literal and metaphorical. The film became a cult hit, and Reeves' brooding performance resonated with audiences who saw reflections of his own struggles in the character's tortured soul. That same year, he reunited with Sandra Bullock in the romantic drama The Lake House, a quiet, melancholic love story about two people communicating across time. It was poetic, fitting for an actor whose life had always been touched by time, loss, and longing. By now, Keanu had developed a reputation, not just as an actor, but as a mystery. He was famous, yet lived like a man who had no interest in fame. He rode the subway, ate alone in small cafes, gave his seat to strangers, and often walked through crowds unnoticed. Photographs would surface online, Keanu sitting on park benches, feeding pigeons, talking to the homeless, or sharing snacks with crew members on set. People began calling him the internet's nicest guy. But beneath the kindness was a quiet solitude. Reeves wasn't playing a part. He was simply being himself, a man who had learned to value presence over possessions. Between 2006 and 2013, Keanu appeared in a series of modestly budgeted but deeply personal films. A Scanner Darkly, 2006. Street Kings, 2008. The Day the Earth Stood Still, 2008. And Henry's Crime, 2010. He also made his directorial debut in 2013 with Man of Tai Chi, inspired by his longtime stunt double, Tiger Chun. The film explored themes of balance, honor, and corruption, mirroring Keanu's own lifelong fascination with Eastern philosophy. By this time, Reeves had also become a beloved meme. The 2010 photo known as Sad Keanu, showing him eating alone on a bench, went viral, sparking jokes and sympathy worldwide. But rather than resist it, Keanu accepted it with grace. "You can't control perception," he said. "People see what they see." Despite decades of fame, he had never built walls between himself and the world. He still walked among people, unnoticed, unfazed, quietly grateful for the simple things: a meal, a smile, a good ride on his motorcycle. During this period, he also co-founded Arch Motorcycle Company, a high-end custom bike manufacturer that combined his passion for design and speed. The company wasn't about profit. It was about craftsmanship and community, the same values that guided his entire life. Keanu once described riding motorcycles as a way to feel free, to be alone with the wind. It was, in many ways, the perfect metaphor for his existence. Solitary, moving forward at peace with the silence. By the early 2010s, Hollywood had begun to move on. Younger stars dominated the box office, and Reeves' name was no longer synonymous with blockbuster hits. But that was about to change, and no one, not even Keanu himself, could have predicted what came next. After years in relative quiet, Reeves was about to stage one of the greatest comebacks in modern film history. By 2013, Keanu Reeves had settled into a kind of quiet rhythm, working steadily, directing, producing, and living a simple life far removed from the relentless glare of Hollywood. He was respected, admired, even adored by those who truly knew his story. But the industry had, for the most part, moved on. And then, in 2014, everything changed. A small, modestly budgeted action film titled John Wick was released with little fanfare. Directed by two former stunt coordinators, Chad Stahelski and David Leitch, the film told the story of a retired assassin seeking vengeance after a brutal act of loss, the killing of his beloved dog, a final gift from his deceased wife. On paper, it sounded like a straightforward revenge story, but in Keanu's hands, it became something more. An emotional meditation on grief, love, and purpose. The character of John Wick resonated deeply with Reeves. The film's themes, mourning, solitude, redemption, mirrored his own life. You could feel the authenticity in every gesture, every quiet glance. Wick's pain wasn't just acting. It was lived experience. Keanu trained for months in judo, jiu-jitsu, and firearms choreography. The fight sequences were breathtaking, raw, fluid, Balitic. His discipline and humility on set impressed everyone involved. Crew members often described him as the first to arrive, the last to leave, and always the most respectful person in the room. When John Wick hit theaters in October 2014, it became an unexpected hit. Critics praised its elegant action and emotional depth, and audiences rediscovered Keanu Reeves, not as a relic of 1990s stardom, but as a reinvigorated force of nature. It was more than a comeback. It was a resurrection. And for Reeves, it was a second chance to do what he loved most, act with purpose. The success of John Wick spawned a franchise. Sequels followed. John Wick, Chapter 2, 2017, Chapter 3, Parabellum 2019, and Chapter 4, 2023, each building on the mythos of the first film while deepening the emotional core of its anti-hero. The choreography became more elaborate, the world-building more intricate, and through it all, Reeves' dedication never wavered. He performed up to 90% of his own stunts, trained relentlessly, and treated every member of the cast and crew with unwavering respect. Behind the scenes, stories of Keanu's kindness became almost mythical. There were tales of him quietly giving away portions of his salary to crew members, buying them motorcycles as thank-you gifts, or spending hours signing autographs and taking photos with fans, never rushing, never complaining. On public transport, people filmed him offering his seat to strangers. On film sets, he shared lunch with grips, electricians, and assistants, treating everyone as equals. These weren't isolated incidents. They were simply who Keanu Reeves was, a man who refused to let fame erode his humanity. His humility became the stuff of legend. But for Keanu, it wasn't about image or virtue. It was simply about being decent. "We're all equal," he once said. "We're all going through things. Be kind, because you never know what someone is carrying." As John Wick redefined modern action cinema, Reeves became something else entirely, not just an actor, but a cultural symbol. In a world obsessed with spectacle, he represented sincerity. In an industry built on ego, he embodied humility. The internet dubbed him the wholesome king, a man untouched by cynicism, who carried himself with dignity in a world that often forgets what that means. Even beyond film, Keanu's influence spread. He lent his voice and likeness to video games like Cyberpunk 2077, where he played the rebellious rock star Johnny Silverhand, a digital extension of his defiant philosophical spirit. And then, in 2019, he returned to the big screen in a series of surprise appearances that reignited his cultural presence, from Toy Story 4, where he voiced the daredevil toy Duke Kaboom, to hilarious cameos in comedies like Always Be My Maybe. That same year, he appeared on stage at the E3 gaming conference, where a fan shouted, "You're breathtaking." Keanu smiled, pointed back at the crowd, and replied, "You're breathtaking. You're all breathtaking." It became one of the most viral, heartwarming moments of the decade, a simple exchange that captured everything people loved about him. Keanu's career by then had spanned nearly 4 decades, from lost teenager to reluctant icon, from action hero to internet saint. Through triumph and tragedy, he had endured not by chasing fame, but by remaining true to himself. Behind the fame, his life remained quiet and grounded. He continued to ride motorcycles, read poetry, and spend time with close friends. In 2019, he made headlines for appearing publicly with Alexandra Grant, an artist and longtime collaborator. Their relationship, marked by mutual respect and creativity, offered a rare glimpse of happiness in Keanu's private world. Through the years, his philosophy never changed. He often said, "The simple act of paying attention can take you a long way." In interviews, when asked about pain, he responded with compassion, not bitterness. His now famous quote, "I know that the ones who love us will miss us," summed up his view on mortality. Not fear, but peace. Even in his 60s, Keanu continues to work tirelessly, mentoring young filmmakers, supporting independent projects, and bringing grace to every set he steps on. His colleagues describe him not as a superstar, but as a collaborator, someone who listens, learns, and leads quietly. Today, Keanu Reeves stands as one of the few actors whose life story transcends cinema. His journey is not just about fame or success, but about resilience, compassion, and integrity in the face of unimaginable loss. He reminds us that even in a world defined by chaos, kindness still matters, that humility can coexist with greatness, and that grief, though permanent, can be transformed into empathy. Keanu once said, "Sometimes we're just passing through this world trying to do good." And in his case, he has done more than good. He has inspired millions, from the lonely boy who moved from city to city, to the heartbroken man who turned pain into purpose, to the legend who reminded the world that decency never goes out of style. Keanu Reeves' life is proof that greatness isn't measured by fame, wealth, or applause. It's measured by how you treat others and by the quiet, unwavering grace with which you move through the storms of life. And if you enjoyed this video, make sure you like and subscribe and comment your favorite Keanu Reeves movie.